DawgNation welcomes in Laura Rutledge, a woman that truly needs no introduction. We're going to talk football, but first we have to have some girl talk. Look at the outfit. What's the thought process that goes into picking out your outfits, and who are you wearing?
Well, thank you for asking. So it's funny because when it comes to anything SEC related, my thought process is truly, okay, which team's colors am I wearing? And let me make sure that I'm not going to offend any fan base. Absolutely. So the great thing about this outfit, it's from Alice and Olivia. It's got like everybody's colors on it. So it was fine. And we have Georgia today. So there's a little bit of black in here and a little bit of red. So I'm covering all the bases. That was how I looked at it.
One of the things that I look forward to on Saturday mornings is watching your daughter Reese pick her winner for the game of the week. What are her thoughts on Texas and Oklahoma coming into the SEC?
You know, it's funny because I was explaining to her that we have two new teams, and she was like, but Mama, who are they? You know, like she thinks of them as people. So we actually went and looked at some of the rosters for both Texas and Oklahoma, and she's trying to familiarize herself. The funny thing is, no matter what, she's still, I think, going to be pretty loyal to the teams that she's loved in the past, which she loves her Go Dogs. She calls them Go Dogs, not Georgia. But I will be interested to see, like, when we put the helmets there, because I'm sure she'll pick Oklahoma or Texas games. How does she react?
Yeah, does she go with the familiar option?
I don't know. We'll have to find out.
So even though Nick Saban's not here as a coach, his presence is certainly still felt as an analyst, and you got the chance to sit down with him and Kirby Smart together this morning. Yeah. How was the dynamic different between the two of them?
They're so much fun. Yeah. I mean, I've loved getting to interview both of those guys over the last few years, and to interview them together is always special. But the unique thing about this year, obviously, with Nick not being in coaching anymore, he's a little bit more relaxed, and I think Kirby was a little bit more willing to share some things because he knows that it's not going to hurt him in any way, shape, or form. But really, to me, what's so special with those two, and Kirby Smart, even in his opening address to the media, credited Nick Saban for making him the man who he is today. And to see the respect that they have, also the grateful nature between both of them, I think is really, really special. And they really wouldn't be either one of them where they are without the other, and I think they're very aware of that.
Yeah, in his local media appearance this morning, Kirby said that saying things to Nick Saban was like talking to Darth Vader. I just thought that was the most hilarious comparison, and just the respect between the two. It's so nice to see them together in that way now.
Yeah, they have so many good stories too, and you think about just all the years, all the great players who have come through their programs, and yet behind the scenes there was a lot of these things happening, like we're sneaking off to play golf because we don't want Coach Saban to see us, but then Coach Saban's sneaking off to play golf at the same time, and we run into each other, and just so many funny things that have happened over the years. One of my favorite stories that Kirby shared this morning was that he and Lane Kiffin have this side text where they text each other whenever Coach Saban actually responds to their text. So they get giddy about it. They're so excited that he actually responded. Just really a fun. I mean, I think we'll all look back on this time years from now and say, how lucky were we to experience the SEC in this current era, and to know what these coaches have done and what they would end up becoming in the teams, and it's really special. I almost feel like we'll reflect on it in that way.
Every year at SEC Media Days, Kirby Smart gives us some sort of iconic mantra, whether it's better never rest or we will not be hunted, and this year it's assume nothing. When you look at this year's mantra and this year's team, how do the two connect?
Well, he knows that they're going to be ranked as the number one team in the country, the number one team in the SEC. Everyone's going to pick them to win the national championship. Everyone's going to pick them to go through what will be an expanded college football playoff. So more games to play and win it all. And I think what he's guarding against with assume nothing is, let's make sure we don't think that we're that good. Let's make sure that we don't think we're all that. We have to prove it. And we're going to have so many opportunities to do so. I mean, you think about starting the season off against Clemson. That's already a really tough test for them. Beyond that, of course, the schedule only increases. They have to go to Texas. They have a lot of opportunity on the road to prove that they're the dominant team, but they can't just assume they're going to go in there and make something happen. So I think that's what he means by that, because if you look at this Georgia team top to bottom, they are so complete. They are deep. They are talented. They are the best team in the country. How do you make sure that you don't waste this talent a team that I believe may be Kirby Smart's best team in his Georgia tenure and not win a national championship, right?
I mean, obviously that's a big compliment, and there's so much expectation, high expectations around the program, and I feel like kind of what you said, everybody assumes they're already in this category, already in the college football playoff. Is there anything or anyone that can stop the Dogs?
I think Texas will try, and maybe they can. That game, it's interesting because they go to Texas October 19th.
Yeah.
They could lose that game and still be in the playoff. That's the interesting thing about an expanded playoff. They could lose a couple games and still make it in. Now, I don't think that they will, actually, but there would be things like that could maybe stand in their way. So Texas, I would say, is probably their biggest threat within the conference. There's other talent outside the SEC, but I think ultimately it'll matter what happens within the conference. Maybe Alabama. Alabama at times has had their number. Obviously, last season is a recent memory of that. I think the other thing that could get in their way is truly just buying into their own hype. I probably sound like a coach right now, but that's real. You've got these young men who are looking on social media, hearing how great they are all the time. You're trying to block out that noise and focus on the task at hand when every single team is going to completely have a target on their back. I think that could be the only other thing that could maybe destroy their hopes for another national title.
There's so many storylines around this year's team, whether it's the return of Carson Beck or even newcomers like Colby Young and Trevor Etienne. What's the UGA storyline you're going to be following most closely this season?
Yeah, I think it is Carson Beck. And, there's so many great things you could say about him on the field, right? And we've seen that come into fruition even in just one season. Like, it's exciting to think what he's going to do in year two. We were laughing on our SEC Network set. Jordan Rogers was like, there's not many times when you have a quarterback who comes back in his second year and he's worse. Right. Most of the time they're better, which if you think how good Carson was last year, that's pretty scary for opposing teams, especially opposing defenses. I just think how he handles all this is going to be really interesting to watch. He's so calm, he's cool, he's even-keeled, but they've almost asked him to have a little bit more fire to him. They're asking him to go and celebrate with his teammates and to really be this leader that at times shows the leadership outwardly, which that doesn't come naturally to him. He's a quieter guy. So how does he embrace all of this? He'll be in the Heisman conversation once again, all of that. There's just a lot to it. There's a lot on his shoulders. I think he's ready for it. I think he will impress people and maybe even beyond what we would think, right? Like impress the NFL. There are so many things that he will do this year, and it'll be fun to watch.
All right, last thing. I can't let you leave this table without asking you this question, considering you are a Florida grad. When you look at the future of Georgia and Florida, 2026, 2027 will not be played at the Jacksonville Jaguar Stadium, either another neutral site or a home-and-home series. Which would you prefer?
I would prefer the home and home. I think that's what we should do. We'll see what happens. It feels weird to think about the game not being in Jacksonville because it's just been such an iconic moment on the calendar in the football season to go to Jacksonville for that game. But if you had to change it and do it for those couple years, I would say home and home is really fascinating.
Well, Laura, we're so grateful to have you on. For DawgNation, where can they find you on social media?
Oh, yeah. It's just Laura Rutledge on Twitter, Instagram. I have a TikTok, too. I don't know what I'm doing on there, but sometimes it's fun. So check me out.
You might know more than me.